So hello and welcome to another episode of Good Fat Life. And my very special guest today is Tiffany Ellis. And Tiffany has got a fascinating story and background and all kinds of things. And the more we talk, the more we realize that we have so many kind of intersections. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though, I mean, you're like my kid's age, right? So let's just start.
All right.
We met here at the Brighton Lighthouse.
We did.
And you're from Portland.
Yes, Portland, Oregon.
And I'm from Portland, Oregon. And so it's like, okay, so tell me more. And then you are in the dance world. Mm-hmm. So, but you're in the dance world and you do
documentary production, commercial production.
So we're going to talk about all of this stuff and the dance. And you worked at Nike for a while.
I did.
We actually lived next door to one of the founders of Nike when we lived in Beaverton, Oregon, mm-hmm. which is where Nike is. And it's like, okay. And you met your fiance in Australia.
We did, but he is from Michigan.
So that's how, I mean, that's just so you moved to Michigan so that you could be around family.
Yes.
While you're raising your 4-year-old, mm-hmm. right?
Yep. So we reconnected, let's say, in 2019. And just a few months later, we're in lockdown. And so he moved to Portland and we got pregnant and the pandemic is happening. And as soon as our son was born, we realized we needed more family around. We wanted to raise our son in an environment where he had family everywhere. And so we came back to my husband or fiance. I call him my husband because it's been so long now.
Right.
But we came back here to be around his family and raise our son with just surrounded by love.
And then that's exactly what my son and daughter-in-law did. Same thing. They had a baby in the pandemic and just said, you know what, we want to be around family. So they moved from LA to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And there's something really magic about that.
I think it makes a really big difference, not just for the baby, but I think for the parents and just needing that network of support and,
right. You've got the opposite of what my kids have. Like my kids are both live in the environment of their in-laws and cousins and aunts and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then my husband and I get to fly in or fly out like Disneyland grandparents.
Right.
But it's all great. I think they get different perspectives and it's good. So, but I did want to ask you, so what took you to Australia?
So I've always loved traveling, and I had the opportunity to travel as a teenager to Tanzania and to Australia, and I just absolutely fell in love with Australia.
Wow.
So I was able to get a grant as an undergraduate student in college to study Aboriginal dance in the Australian rainforest. So I spent a summer there living with an Aboriginal community, learning all about not just the dance there, but what was going on historically and what was going on culturally. And, they're all tied together. And so that was when I was 21. Okay. And I always wanted to go back there. And so when I was in my early 30s, maybe, I got laid off from my job and I didn't quite know what to do with my life. And an opportunity presented itself to return to Australia. And I said, why not take it? So that's what I did.
So it's so interesting. I mean, I just find it fascinating how life, if we're open to it, mm-hmm. right? And I just heard this morning that one of the most important things about life is to be open to it. And one of the ways to open is to travel. Mm-hmm. It's just because you have to be open.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And when you go in a way that isn't too planned, where you're going with an open mind and you don't know exactly what the outcome is going to be, that's where magic happens.
It does. And speaking of it, so I'm going to digress for 1 minute. So I'm leaving for Morocco tomorrow.
Oh, wow, tomorrow.
And with some friends, and we're having a Good Fat Life retreat, if you will, not looking for anything. We have some cool stuff planned, but it's really designed to just be open to whatever the experience is, food, art, culture. Who
Yeah.
knows? So anyways, so dance has always been something you love to do?
Yes.
Were you always drawn to that?
Yes, I grew up dancing. I grew up doing modern dance. So a lot
Okay.
of little kids start with ballet and the tutus and the ballet shoes. This was, Oregon hippie dance class, barefoot, parallel lines, parallel feet, no turnouts, nothing like that. But I was surrounded by dance growing up. My mom danced. She loved being around dance. My dad was a musician. And so I grew up around dance and music and expression.
And Oregon does. It's just funny to hear you say this because people from the Midwest don't understand Oregon. And it's not a bad thing, right? It's just different culturally. And so when you hear that, I know exactly. I can feel it, right? I can feel it because I grew up in Oregon.
Yeah.
But if you don't know that, you have a different experience.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm still getting used to the dance scene here. It's very different.
It's different.
Very different.
So today, talk about the dance class that we had today.
Yes. So today I was lucky to have a handful of friends from the Brighton Lighthouse.
And I was there.
Yes. Bear with me as I tested some choreography. I was a fitness instructor for several years, which I fit into my production life and my traveling life. And it sounds very disparate and very separate worlds, but actually there are a lot of intersections. So it's very lovely to be able to combine those interests and passions in various ways. So now I'm teaching, or I'm about to launch a new class called Bump and Grind. And today was a run through of that choreography and getting a little bit of feedback and just kind of getting used to, pardon the pun, flexing that muscle again, because it's been several years since I've gotten to teach. So
how was it for you?
It's funny. So it was great. I definitely felt like I was channeling my former sassy self.
It was so much fun.
What was your experience like?
It was so much fun. I mean, obviously, you're doing it to support Whole Mama Michigan, right?
Yes.
That's opening this next week and have classes for expectant moms. But I was like, well, hey, do you have to be an expectant mom to come to the class?
Absolutely not.
And actually, none of us were expectant moms in there. And it was so much fun. It was just so much fun.
I'm so glad to hear that. Bump and Grind is designed to be pregnancy friendly, but not pregnancy exclusive. So the idea is that we are moving our bodies, we're letting loose a little bit, we're jamming out to some really fun songs that, we don't always get to spend time jamming out to. Our lives get very busy and we do a lot of things for other people. And here we get to spend a little bit of time for ourselves and just dance and not think too much and just enjoy.
And that was one of the things that was a comment from one of our colleagues was you have to be so in the moment. And there's so few times in our day where we really are in the moment because we're always like, I got to do this or I haven't done that, right? Yeah. And so it was really fun to just be in the moment and to just have fun and laugh and move. And I don't know. I was just like, oh my gosh, we got to get this schedule going between that and the line dancing and some of the other stuff, to get a couple times a week just because there's nothing. I mean, the science keeps showing over and over and over. There's absolutely nothing better we can do for our longevity and feel good and all of that than move.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and I'm the first one to say it's so easy for me to sit. Right?
Well, and that's an issue, I think, just across the board, right? Is that we are increasingly sedentary and it can be really hard sometimes. There's so much that we can do online. There's so much that we can do, and that's always seated,
right.
you know? So yeah, it's a chance to get up, shake it out. And the nice thing about Bump and Grind is that you actually get to use some muscles that you don't use very often. You're moving your hips, you're moving your chest, you're loosening up because a lot of times when we're
and your
seated,
shoulders, you're using a lot of those. Yeah. I noticed in my hip flexors, right? They were used a lot and squats.
I'm going to feel those for a couple of days probably.
But it's all good. I'm just curious to know a little bit about your documentaries. Talk about that a little bit.
Trying to tie my various different lives together. My biggest passion as I was figuring out what to do with my life, I love dance, I love filmmaking, and I said, wow, well, why don't I just make dance documentaries? That would be amazing. So that's what I did. So I started with that grant in college, and I made a dance documentary out in the Daintree Rainforest in Australia. And then various meanderings. When I made it back to Australia, I was working with a nonprofit organization in Western Australia, teaching filmmaking techniques to rural and remote communities. Many of them were Indigenous, but not all of them. And then that just kind of progressed from there. I worked with the American Dance Festival for several years, making dance documentaries with amazing modern dance choreographers and legends, which was amazing. I worked on a hula documentary. It's kind of taken me everywhere. I've tried to come back to dance filmmaking throughout my career, but, it can be challenging sometimes, and you kind of, take twists and turns here and there. I ended up doing commercial production, and I got to work with athletes, which, dance is certainly an athletic endeavor. And so turning into sport and turning into fitness and kind of, again, bringing in my interests in dance and movement and exercise, I was sort of able to bring all those things
movement.
together.
We don't say exercise. It's just much friendlier, I guess. I don't know. Actually, training. I have movement and then training, because I find that if I'm training for something, it's inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Different than just exercising, right? So training, right? Just all fits. And I love now that you're taking that with the Whole Mama Michigan.
Yeah.
Because it's just to get that into your, I want to say, life as just part of your day, especially then when you're having babies, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but moving helps you feel better.
My interest in the prenatal and postpartum space, of course, when you're experiencing it firsthand, it kind of inspired me like, oh, I'm going through this. Other people are going through this too. What's the kind of support I need or I wish I had? And then I was lucky when I was at Nike. I ended up working with an amazing team of people who were putting together Nike's first ever prenatal and postpartum training program. That became another beautiful sort of synchronicity with my interests and my job, where I could put those together, and it kind of, between just having a baby and being, leading this team of people and they are experts in everything that they do. And we put together this program of storytelling. We're telling stories about, postpartum moms. They're returning to exercise for the first time, and Olympic athletes who have continued training throughout their pregnancies. And then also, like, here's a workout program for you if you're having issues with your pelvic floor. I was able to really expand my interests and then also put something together as a resource for other people. So that's become this sort of passion as I'm moving beyond the baby years. My own son is 4 now. How can I support other moms? And then also, how can I keep moving and doing things that I love? And so now this Whole Mama Michigan space is a beautiful space for expecting moms, for postpartum moms, for people, trying to conceive. It's going to be a really wonderful, supportive community, and so many different resources available there. And one of them will be this dance class.
Not having my babies and my grandbabies around, right? It's exciting for me. I tell Emily, I go, we need a grandma class, right? So that we can be around, because it's so much fun to be around generations. Be able to come and dance. I'm looking forward to when the class is full of expectant moms and new moms and all of that, just because it's community.
Yeah.
Right? And there's just something magic about all of that, where we get to kind of like play together.
Yeah. And I think too, with motherhood and early motherhood, it can be very isolating. And maybe that's me speaking as a pandemic mom.
Right.
But, it can feel very lonely. I mean, that sounds so depressing. But, sometimes your only
and
company is your baby. And you're just trying to figure out, like, if you have a clean pair of leggings to put on, So, a chance for women to come together who are also going through something similar or who have just gone through that, and finding a sense of community and camaraderie and friendship in a place where sometimes you can feel really isolated.
Right. There's so many topics, right? Just in this conversation.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like we have these gifts that we do when we're younger, and then how we can build on them. And you never know when one thing will take you to the next thing that takes you to the next thing, right? And to be open to that is just so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I have a friend many, many, many years ago tell me, in life, you can have successes and you can have stories. So whatever you do, you'll have one or the other, or both if you're lucky. So, being open, you don't know what the outcome will be, but being open to whatever that journey is, it will either be a success, like, wow, I accomplished this thing, I took this risk and it did this thing, or, it'll be a story that you tell. It'll be this amazing anecdote that you can either learn from or joke about, or, you have a great story for a dinner party, So I think just having that attitude can help you kind of reframe sometimes when you're feeling stuck or you're feeling uncertain about maybe a decision you have to make or a decision you've already made and you're not so sure if it was the best thing to do. And I'd like to think that that's how I've approached my life.
Right.
It's like, well, this will either be a success or a story, so let's go for it.
Or it could be both.
Or it can be both.
It could be both. So, oh my gosh. Well, great. So the next chapter for you is
wide
open.
Yeah, the next chapter is, I feel like it's about to begin, or like I'm writing the preface right now, maybe. The other thing we haven't talked about is that I've been going through cancer treatment for the last 14 months, and that's just about to wrap up. So, I think having a child who is getting into school age and being more independent and moving into a new city and finding a new community and finding a new network and exploring or revisiting a side of my professional life that I haven't done in a while. Like, all of these things are kind of all happening at the same time. So it feels very much, again, pun very much intended, it feels like a bit of a rebirth, which can be daunting, but I'm finding it, or I'm choosing to find it, very exciting.
But isn't that always, you just said the magic word, you're choosing to find it.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine what it would be like to have a young child be in a new community, although you had family, right? But it's still,
well, it's my husband's family.
It's
so.
not your family,
Right.
And it's there's no judgment there. It's a discernment, right? It's not the same as your family when you're going through some really challenging times. And from what I understand with your cancer, it wasn't like, oh, I have to go get some treatments. I'm really, it's rocked my world.
Yeah.
For a while, right? And then to have a child during all of that and your career and everything. So you've been through a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, but then to say, I'm choosing, because we get to choose. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And lots of people aren't aware that they were getting to choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
you're right.
It shifts the energy on everything. You really rocked that class this morning.
Oh, thanks.
That was so much fun. Like I said, I was just thinking we got to do this every, a couple times a week. It's got to be, because it's just for so many reasons.
And it's a mood shifter. Like,
oh yeah,
when you're able to really be present in that moment, and when you're able to just, for me, when I hear a good song, I got to rock out to that really good song, right? So to be able to do that for an hour or 50 minutes or 20 minutes like we did it today, you're just kind of losing a bit of that inhibition and just getting to enjoy something that you love doing.
And everybody's face had a huge grin on it, right? Which that just fills you full of all those good chemicals.
Yeah.
So,
and the whole point of this class, too, it's not to pick up the moves immediately and be some amazing professional dancer with it. The whole point is to move your body and get to spend some time on yourself and for yourself, So it's not about getting the moves right. It's not even about moving in the same direction as the person next to you. It's just about enjoying the music, getting your body moving, and if you have benefits that go beyond that, amazing. Yeah, it's just about being able to let loose and have fun.
Let loose. Well, thank you so much for being with me today and sharing your story.
Thank you,
I know
Sherri.
there's so much more to come, right? Whole Mama Michigan is having a baby shower tonight.
They
right?
are.
To launch and the shower gifts are supporting the business, which I just thought was so clever.
Yes.
Right? And so interesting.
Yes.
So I invite all of our listeners to check out goodfatlife.com. And as we speak, we have our new issue going to the printer, and it's kind of like a new baby being born every issue, right? It's so much fun. And as I said earlier, I'm heading to Morocco tomorrow. And so I'm going to do a little shout out for two of our sponsors because they make my self-care possible. So first off is Snedecor's Cleaners. So packing is always a challenge for me. Taking care of my clothes and having them ready. And so I just put out my yellow bag on the front porch and it comes back and everything's done. And it's just such a part of my self-care to know that my clothes are ready. I just don't want to be messing with them anymore. And it saves me hours a week and peace of mind knowing that I can pack and I'm good to go. The second thing is my hands-on health chiropractor. So I saw Dr. Rushford yesterday because I had fallen and had a concussion earlier, and I'm still feeling a little off. I had a great adjustment yesterday, and he's like, "You're good to go. You're good to be ready on that plane." And I just didn't want to go when I just still felt, off. And I swear, you walk into their office, and it doesn't matter how great you feel walking in, you just feel even better walking out. So I just want to say how grateful I am to have people in my world that help me manage and live my good fat life. So thank you. So on that happy note, go out and live your good fat life.